This is actually a post editing Becca coming in to apologise for the quality of the audio on today's podcast. I messed up with my recording and I lost the audio, which meant I had to use the camera footage. And I tried my best, but it's not as high quality as I would want it to be. This episode was also recorded a month ago from when I am now recording this and adding it in to post it in the next few days. So I apologise for that, but there is more regular content coming, I promise. And if you want to see other life stuff, what I'm getting up to outside of the podcast, follow Cripple Chronicles Pod on TikTok. This is going to be part of the intro for today, but I'm going to let past Becca get into it just now, and I hope you enjoy. Mwah. Sorry again. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Cripple Chronicles podcast. My name is Becca, and today's episode is called Chaotic Christmas. I am not going to do much of an intro because this whole episode is going to basically be about the month of December. So I'm just going to be quick and do the usual. Hit a like and subscribe if you are watching the video on YouTube. Please rate and review the podcast on all listening platforms, and just do the things. Leave a comment, leave a review, do whatever. But let's just get into today's episode. So I feel like I start every single podcast episode after the intro saying so, and that has just become so apparent to myself in that moment that I'm like, wow. What I was going to say before I got distracted by the fact that I start every episode by saying so, I also don't know if you can see when you're watching on YouTube, but I've got a little guest on my lap today. I have Simba, and I've still not bloody told you about what I was going to say. So, every time I say so now, I'm like caught on it. December is, I think, a very difficult or hard month for a lot of people because of how dark it gets, how little sunlight there is. That takes a bit of an impact on everybody, and then there is the stress of buying presents and Christmas dinner, and everything's busier, and it's just a lot. That is for regular people, but then people who suffer with poor mental health already, I think, struggle a lot around December, Christmas time, festive time. And I think I found it quite hard this year. The run up to Christmas kind of ended up feeling like a bit of a blur, but I had a lot of things that happened in December, and I was a wee bit kind of on the fence if I was going to make a podcast episode and talk about this. However, the podcast is called The Cripple Chronicles for a reason. It is all of the bizarre shit that happens in my life. It is what that had always been. I had a little private story, and I would just ramble on and post about the wild things that had happened in my life. So we're going to go to the roots a wee bit and just take an episode to talk about the wild shit that happened to me in the month of December. My birthday is quite early on in December, and my friend and the person that I'm seeing at the moment had things planned for my birthday, which was nice to go out and do things and kind of have little things planned for it that made me more excited about my birthday. And then the actual day of my birthday, I didn't have to leave the house. I just sat and chilled with people around me who make me feel loved. And that was the most important thing for me, because my birthday is always quite difficult for me as somebody who is mentally ill, and I have been for a lot of my life. I didn't know if I would make it to 16, to be honest. And then I made it to 16 and I thought, well, 18's an adult and I'll never make it to being 18. And then here I am now at 26, being able to give a little hug to that 16-year-old inside of me and say, like, look, we made it. Things might look different to how they were, but we made it through all of it, even after everything. And although I'm able to kind of sit and reflect on that, it's scary. Like, I never really thought that I would get to being an adult, and then I did get to being an adult, and I thought I kind of was on the right path, the path that you're meant to be on. I went to school, I went to college, I went to uni, I did a nursing degree, I got a job as a staff nurse. Like, I was on the ladder to a normal life in the view of society, and now I'm here. So that is a very difficult shift because it's a total change, but the big thing is I'm still here, and that was really nice to just kind of sit and enjoy that. My birthday is pretty close to the crash anniversary, and on the anniversary of my accident, I did post a podcast episode that had been pre recorded before my accident anniversary. We're going back to the day before the accident anniversary now, which is why in that episode this wasn't mentioned, but this is probably going to be something that is kind of hard for me to talk about, so just bear with me. And it's something that I wasn't sure if I was going to share on the podcast. This is the first of two things that I wasn't sure if I was going to share. Um, Unfortunately, the day before my accident anniversary, I woke up with Simba growling at the window, and I just thought it was another cat or something like that. And I got up and I went into my wheelchair and I went to the toilet. And when I came back, I realised that my window was now off of the latch and opened more. So I thought that an animal had been trying to get in, like that Simba had been growling at. So I have a grabber. I wish I had it near me to show you, but I don't. So I just used, like, it's like a litter picker. I used my grabber to try and shut the window. However, it was not another cat. It was not an animal. It was a person who basically fully ripped my window open, clocked me standing there with my grabber, and I'm like smacking him because he's got a mask on, and he's realised that, like, this is the wrong fucking house, because there's been some things going on with my neighbours where the police have been getting called, um, a lot of like vandalism to his house, and I think it was in relation to that. But it was it was scary. It was fucking scary. I initially, the first thing I did was phoned Eleanor because I was so shaken up. Like, I could then hear like banging. So I was on the phone to her and I knew that I had to phone the police, but I was so worried that if I phoned the police that he would come back or something like that. So I waited, which I know wasn't the best idea to do. Like, a lot of people probably would disagree with that. However, I was scared. I have PTSD. Like, I didn't know how to deal with that situation. I have never had somebody attempt to break into my house. So I ended up phoning the police, and they were already on the way up here because of a vandalism that had been reported at my neighbour's house. So when they got here, the police kind of came in, and a lot of it is a blur for me, to be honest. But one thing that stands out to me is that I said that I had my window on the latch, and the police officer basically told me that it was my fault. Like, if I didn't have my window on the latch, then that wouldn't have happened, and that guy wouldn't have tried to get into my house. And it's I think that it's absolutely wild, like, thinking back on it now, like, I literally just have my windows open for ventilation. I haven't since because I'm scared. Like, I'm terrified every time I go towards the back of my house and the windows, just in case that I see somebody. And when I phoned Ellen initially, like, she laughed at me for this, and I think anybody else like listening to this is probably going to have a good laugh, because a lot of people that I've told, like, because it was so early in the morning and like Simba had been like hissing and growling and stuff like that, I really thought it was an animal. Like, it never crossed my mind that it could be a person. So um I was using the grabber to like close the window, and like the guy had like gloves on or something, or like something over his hands. But when he went to pull up the window, the first thought that went through my head was like, fuck me, man, they're big paws, like that must be a bear. And I it was 5 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't expecting it to be a human. I know that there's not just bears fucking roaming about behind my house, but like, what else was I meant to think in that moment? Like, I just couldn't compute the fact that it would be a human. And um, it's scary. Like, it's scary being around things like that. Um, I've had an occurrence where I had to phone the police on one of my neighbours because of their mental health, and they were really unwell and shouting about hurting themselves and setting fire to the flats. And like, our houses are connected, so if he set fire to one, that puts like me at risk. And it's just, there always seems to be something going on, but that just seems to be what it's like. And I'm still a bit shaken by it. Like, I don't know if like that's something that is going to stay with me for a really, really long time, and I'm actually surprised that I managed to get through speaking about it without starting crying, because like, I'd went to the doctors and stuff like that, and they'd given me diazepam, and that wasn't helping, and I was still like lying awake and stuff like that, because even if it was targeted towards my neighbour, it's something that's still really scary to happen. And like, I can remember like trying to fucking like hit my grabber and stuff like that. Like, I was just in panic mode. Like, I don't know what was coming out of my mouth, but I was just like, no, 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 like, you've got, like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, no, 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 no. So like, when I was saying that to the police, they were like, "Oh, so you were having a conversation?" And I was like, "Well, no, like, I was talking to him. He wasn't talking back to me." But that, yeah. Um, so I had that, and then I woke up the next day, and it was crash anniversary, and I had planned that I was going to go to like the Christmas markets in Edinburgh, and I did go. However, like, I don't know if there's people listening to this that have been to Edinburgh. They'll probably know like the part that I'm speaking about. However, if you've not been to Edinburgh, I will try to explain this in the best possible way that I can. But I don't know if it will be any good. So you've got like the Christmas markets in Edinburgh, and before, I thought they used to like, there's a bit of a park behind where they were in like the Princess Square bit, I think. There's like gardens behind it, where this year they had like lights and stuff like that where you would just go round. However, the gate when you go in says Edinburgh Christmas Markets. So I go down it in my chair, and then my my partner is also in a wheelchair. He's in a power chair, and he kind of said to me like, "Well, how are we getting back up?" And I was like, "I don't know. We'll think about that when we get to it. Like, it might not be too bad." wrong. It was like a really, really steep hill to go back up it. And we have found a way where, like, when my arms are getting tired, I can just hold on to the back of his chair and it usually pulls me. However, like this time I was holding on and I had like my leg tucked in underneath a part on his chair. However, I wasn't sure about it, so I moved my leg, and when I moved my leg, it just threw off the balance and his chair started tipping backwards and so did mine, and I was like, oh, okay, this isn't working. I was like, okay, I'm just going to go up it backwards. So this like massive steep hill, I'm like heaving myself backwards up it. I think I probably, there was maybe like a third of the way left, and this big guy's like, look, do you want a hand? And sometimes my pride gets in the way, but not this time. I was like, yes, please, I am absolutely gubbed. And he was like, well, how do you want us to do it? And I was like, well, usually if there's somebody pushing me, I would turn round, but I can't turn round on this steep hill because my wheelchair's going to tip backwards. So it was literally the two women that were with him. They just took an arm each of my chair and just started like pushing me backwards up this hill. And as we were getting to the top, they spotted my partner and they were like, "Oh, you should get a shot at his battery." And I was like, "Well, usually like that's what we do, but it was just too much of a steep hill to be able to do that." And then we kind of, so that obviously took a lot out of me. And then I felt like I couldn't really enjoy the markets as much because I was like, it was quite busy. It was busier than I was expecting it to be. There was that kind of big push to get up there. We were looking round, like everything just seemed so expensive. The weather was quite miserable. Like we went along to the end and I bought myself a little purse that's got a cat on it that kind of resembles Simba, a little ginger cat. And then we kind of headed back because I was like done at that point. And there's like a bit of a shopping mall that's next to Waverley Station, and that has always been the way that I have entered Waverley Station. However, I haven't been to Edinburgh since being in a wheelchair. So we went in where I thought we were to go in, and it was like 20 minutes to our train. Went to the shop, got some juice because I was thirsty, a wee snack because we hadn't had any dinner and I was just done in. And then we went down to the bit where I thought that you could get into the station, and the only way you can access it, there's stairs. And it just felt like everywhere we went, stairs, stairs. And it started to really get to me. I was getting really upset because I was like, I feel like life is having a joke with me right now. Life is putting all of these stairs in front of me and being like, haha, bitch, look at what you could do 4 years ago that now you can't do. You need to try and find an alternative way because you can't get up these stairs. Oh, I was just totally in my head about it. It was hard. Like it was good to get out and kind of do something, do an activity, because I've spent so many years stuck in the house and ruminating on it. But I think it's harder the further away I get from the date of the accident, because the more I progress in my recovery and try to move on with my life, I think people don't realise that the anniversary of the accident still hurts as much every year. The anniversary of the accident is the day that my life changed. I never got a chance to see what the other road looked like, and that is always going to be a day that is full of a lot of grief for me. Even if I go out and I have fun and I do something to try and make myself feel better, it'll never feel like a celebration, because I don't think that I'll ever be able to celebrate the day that my life changed forever. My amputation is a bit different because that allowed me to have the life that I have now. With the frame, I didn't have that. But with the accident, it was the 2 years with the frame, like that was the hardest part. The day after my crash anniversary, I then had a physio appointment, which I wasn't sure if I was going to go to it. My day had been pretty taxing the day before, physically and mentally, and I'd forgot to book myself patient transport, so I was having to drive myself to my appointment. However, I decided that I was still going to go, even though right now my leg wasn't fitting me. I wanted to just go, and it was more just muscle testing and a check in to see how I'm doing. And it was all pretty positive, to be honest. And I'm really glad that I did decide to go instead of just waiting it out. However, I don't kind of have any more physio appointments now until I get my new prosthetic, and hopefully within 2024 I will kind of reach my walking goals with my prosthetic, with a prosthetic that fits me properly, and I'll be able to do so much shit. I don't even know what I'll be able to do right now, because to be honest, I'm recording this still before New Year and I've not quite planned out my goals for this coming year. I have just realised that this is the first podcast that I am doing, obviously, since the new year. So, although I am recording this before 2024, I guess I would just like to I guess I would just like to wish all of you who are listening to this a happy new year, and that 2024 brings you all of the health and wealth and gratitude in the world. I don't know, that, like, health and wealth wasn't exactly what I wanted to say there, and it just sounded a wee bit wishy-washy, but like, whatever your plans and your goals and your aspirations are for 2024, I hope you achieve them, even if that is just to get through it. So so. The build up to Christmas then felt a bit harder this year. Like, it just felt like it was taking forever. And last week I went to go see my gran before Christmas to drop off some presents and just to spend some time with her. And what I didn't realise was about to happen was a total fucking shock to me. In a previous episode of this podcast, I think I have mentioned it, but I had always been a bit scared of consequences, I guess, for speaking out, but I'm not scared anymore. When I had my accident 4 years ago, I was lying in the middle of the road when the paramedics told me that my mum was my emergency contact, and I begged them not to phone her. And I told them to phone my dad. I didn't know his mobile number, but I gave them his work address. And that was the moment that I kind of realised that I couldn't have my mum in my life for the next part of my recovery. And if you listen back to the episode that is about alcoholism, you might understand why a bit more. But when I went to my gran's last week, I thought that it was man that had came to the door, and it was actually my mum. And this was something that shook me. Like, it was hard. It was really hard. I didn't expect to see her. I've not seen her in 4 years. I've not spoke to her in 4 years. I blocked her number and there was no attempt to contact me, as far as I'm aware. I blamed myself for this initially because I unblocked her number a few weeks ago because I guess I wanted to see if she would message me over Christmas or New Year or see if there was anything. And I felt like I had maybe potentially opened that door and that's why she turned up. But I'm not going to put all of that weight on myself. It happened, and um, my support system kind of really just kicked into full force and got me out of the situation. Um, but it was really difficult for me because I was there for about an hour and I felt like I was my gran's friend that my mum had never met before. I felt like a total stranger. And I know the person that I am now is a total stranger to who she knew back then. Up until that point, rather than word of mouth or if she has seen it somewhere from any of my social media, which she shouldn't have, because she shouldn't have access to it. But if she's found some way to see from my social media that I only have one leg, but that would have been the first point where she realised that I had had my leg amputated if nobody had told her, because my gran asked when I got my leg amputated if she could tell my mum, and I actually had to make the decision to say, no, sorry. Like, around the accident, I kept her in the loop. I kept her in the loop when things were serious, when things were in a critical condition. However, she's not been there, and this is just my life now. This was like a bad situation for me to have to get my leg amputated, but she's not been around for it and she's not going to be in my life to see it. So no, please don't tell her. So other than that, I I don't know. Like, she didn't really speak to me once. She said hi to me when she came in, and then she asked me a question about my partner's car when he was coming to pick me up, and that was about it. And I'm not going to lie, it hurts. It does hurt. Like, how can it not? That little girl inside of me is always screaming out for a mum. That's all I wanted. I just wanted a mum. And she unfortunately wasn't cut out to be a mum. And it's sad. It's it's really sad, and I was the one to leave. She decided to stay, which again is something that I don't exactly agree with, but I stuck to my boundaries. I was in a situation that made me uncomfortable and I removed myself, and that is all that I could have done in that moment. But I don't know, like, it's hard not having that relationship, and I always wanted my mum in my life. There was always room for her. But unfortunately, this is just how things have worked out, and I am a much better person than when she knew me. And I probably do feel like a stranger to her. And for that, I'm grateful because I'm not a product of my upbringing. There was a path that I could have went down that I chose not to go down, and that takes a lot of strength to do that. I think there are a lot more things that I could say about it, but I've started to feel a bit numb to it all, to be honest, because if I dwell on it too much, it's going to cause too much hurt and pain, and I just can't deal with that at the moment, to be honest. I have too much else going on to spend time thinking about what life could have been if I had the proper love and support and care, but I didn't. And I'm here now and I have the life I have now, and I am surrounded by all of the love that I'm surrounded by. And for that, I'm forever grateful, even if it gets to a point where I never speak to my mum again. That's just how it's meant to be. And nothing changes if nothing changes. That was a really difficult, difficult thing, and it brought up a lot of triggers in me, a lot of things that I struggle with, and everything kind of blurs together, to be honest. Like, from being at my grand's until Christmas Day, it's just a bit of a blur. Like, I was started on new medication by the doctors. They'd gave me an appointment with the wellbeing nurse, who phoned me an hour early and told me that they only deal with mild to moderate mental health and mine's is complex, so I need to phone the crisis team. So I then got home from my grand's and had to basically phone the crisis team and give them a background of all of my history, which is bad enough in itself, before I had to tell them the actual root of the problem. And it's difficult talking to the crisis team because I know that I'm starting psychology when I am struggling. It is good for me to reach out and use the services, because then it is on record when I go to my psychology, when I've been struggling, when I've needed support. However, it's very difficult to phone the crisis team because they just kind of get your notes up and there's only the most recent stuff, and there's a lot of complex things about me, my childhood, my accident, like all of it. So a lot of the time I don't really know what route to take when phoning the crisis team. And even then, like, the women just said, like, oh, you're such a resilient person to get through all that you have, and like, hopefully just when you get to, I mean, you've got like an appointment letter here, and hopefully when you get to your appointment for psychology, we can just kind of change your focus on things. And I'm like, changing my focus, I don't think is the reason why I need psychotherapy. I don't know how to change my focus on the childhood that I had, seeing my mum for the first time in 4 years and her basically treating me like a stranger, and also my accident where I now have one leg. Like, what is the focus that I need to change? Because they're all very real events that happened that impacted me in a very severe way, and I'm already trying to change things in my life that make it easier for me. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I am looking forward to starting psychology because I have been asking for mental health support since this happened, and whatever I get out of it is whatever I get out of it. Like, I am going to try and get the most out of it as possible because I want to be better. I don't want to feel like this all the time. I want to know how to cope. I want to know how to deal with daily life and things that it throws at me. But I've used all of my own tools. Like, I'm bust. I need help to be able to continue to do that. It's not changing my focus, it's giving me the tools that I need to survive in this fucking hellscape of a world. I then got to Christmas Day, and do you know, I actually had a really nice Christmas Day. It didn't feel like Christmas when I woke up, but that's partly my own fault. I did say this year that I was going to get a Christmas tree and I was going to try and be more festive. However, I didn't plan for all of the events of this year kind of having to go down to see Eleanor and support her and things like that with being in hospital. I didn't expect those expenses, and it came to Christmas and it just felt like a tree wasn't really worth it. I mean, I hardly was able to buy anybody Christmas presents this year because I was a bit skint. So, like, getting a tree just felt like a waste of money. But then when I woke up on Christmas Day, it didn't really feel like Christmas. It just felt like any other day. But I went to my brother's and spent some time with him and his partner and her mum and stepdad, and we had some really good food. And it was just like it was a nice day, like it was a good day. Came home, hung out with my partner, and then I done a madness. I decided that I wanted to see the rest of my family round about Christmas, and the rest of my family is Eleanor, Jonathan, and Faye. So I woke up at 3 a.m. on Boxing Day and I got myself all sorted and I got in my car and I did the 200 odd mile drive down to spend some time with them, and I got there round about 8:30, and Eleanor fucking beat me to it. I had my hoodie on and I was going to FaceTime her, like looking tired, mad, like just putting my seatbelt on and being like, oh, I've had some delays this morning, but I've made it, I'm here. But she was already standing outside the door, like waving at me as I was coming in. And as after I'd hopped up her stairs, she'd been like, I've been sitting watching you for the last 2 hours and 40 minutes on your location. Like, I could see you coming. um, and that was just a nice day, just sitting, chatting, hanging out, had a sleep, had some food, and then I drove back home and I did like over 500 miles or something in 24 hours, which it's wild to me. It was a wild thing to do. However, it was the best day for me to do it because it was the only day that there was to be good weather out of like an 11-day period. And I don't regret it. Even if I had to sleep for like 21 hours the next day, like I don't regret it at all. 21 hours is a bit of an exaggeration. It was more like 19, but still it was a long time of sleeping. And then I woke up the day after and I had some kind of sickness bug and I was out of commission as well. I don't know if that had maybe a bit been from all of the travelling that I had done and what I had put my body through. I did think that it could maybe be a bit of backlash from that. But we got through it, and it's going to be a pretty quiet new year for me, to be honest. Like, I don't really do new year. So I'm going to sit and plan my year, plan my goals, do some journaling, take stock of all of the fucking amazing things that I have achieved over the course of 2023. And I guess that's it for today. I'm going to stop doing the transition into the outro because I don't really have much more to say other than what I've already said previously, which is I hope this year brings all that you could hope for. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be any difficult times, but whatever life throws at you in 2024, I hope you manage to find the strength to get through it because your life is absolutely worth it. And I would really like to think that whoever is sitting, listening, or watching this year is here at the start of 2025 when I make another chaotic December podcast episode. But yes, that is it from me for today. The next episode will be my episode about accessibility and the downsides of it, an episode that I have been meaning to record for months. However, I'm on a roll, so I'm actually going to do it very soon. So you won't have to actually wait too long for that, if you even care. If you don't care, then fine, fuck you. And on that note, fuck you and goodbye!